The show will take up the issue of credibility of research in vaccine for COVID-19 as medicine firms and experts all over the world are racing to get the right vaccine. There are some findings in the trials of AstraZeneca University of Oxford vaccine that has raised question about the way vaccine clinical trials have been handled. Well, let me also add that AstraZeneca University of Oxford vaccine is being tipped as the most we can say the latest or something to arrive at the earliest of several candidate vaccines. Now, the errors in the trials of the candidate vaccine has been acknowledged by AstraZeneca and Oxford University, terming it a manufacturing error. What's more alarming, the error has been discovered days after the company and the university described the shots as highly effective. So what do these findings mean for the credibility of research on the efforts to arrive at suitable vaccine? To discuss more on the issue, we are joined with three very important guests. We're joined with Dr. Gagandeep Kang. Well, ma'am, thanks for joining us. Dr. Vishwakarma, advisor CSIR, and Dr. Madhu Gupta. She is from Department of Medicine and School of Public Health, PGMR, Chandigarh. Well, thanks all of you for joining us. Well, let me start with you, Dr. Gagandeep Kang. Ma'am, could you explain us about the quantum of difficulties we are staring in terms of having a right or suitable candidate vaccine given the erroneous findings in AstraZeneca Oxford University trials? Ma'am.
Thank you, Rajat. What I'd like to do is just to talk to you about the results that were presented first.
Sure, ma'am. Right.
The results that are presented are from two studies, COV002 and COV003. And in one study, what happened was that some of the participants were given half the dose of the vaccine. Now, when we talk about half the dose, we must understand the difference between the two doses, because half and full sounds like a lot. But actually what we are talking about is the difference between 25 billion virus particles and 50 billion virus particles. So in terms of the immune response, I think it would be very difficult for an immune system to tell about much of a difference between 25 and 50 when the number that follows them is a billion.
Okay.
So
certainly, yes. Yeah.
This seems to have happened due to an error in measurement when the vaccine was tried out. I've actually checked the clinical trial registration site, and I find that the trial information about this error was communicated to the regulators as far back as May. And the regulators were aware of this, and the regulators allowed for the trial to proceed with the second dose being given as a full dose. And when it comes to the analysis that was presented earlier this week, this was done in the format that the regulators wanted. Now, I find this a bit unusual.
Okay.
Because I would have treated the trials as two separate trials, one which has the low dose and the high dose, and the other one which has two high dose vaccinations, which is similar to what is being done in India. However, it appears that the Medicines Regulatory Agency in the UK, MHRA, had asked for the data to be combined, and hence the presentation of 70% efficacy, when actually I think these are two separate trials, one with about 62% efficacy and the other one with about 90% efficacy. Same vaccine, but the dosing seems to have made a difference to the performance of the vaccines. So lots of interesting science questions there, and lots of questions about how these data are being communicated.
Right, right, right. Well, let me come to you, Dr. Vishwakarma. Well, to begin with, the error in the findings, or to say the slips, is it fairly common when a vaccine of a pandemic such as huge or gigantic proportion like COVID-19 is staring us? So is it expected to have such erroneous findings? Is it a part of racing towards having a vaccine or a candidate vaccine? Or is it something immensely erratic from both the companies and the other stakeholders?
Yeah, so answer is very simple. It is not expected. With the kind of trials, kind of partners, kind of regulators involved.
Right.
It's not expected. It is very unusual. And I'm confused. Sometimes they say manufacturing error, sometimes they say dosing error.
Yes.
So I think these are very two different kind of errors. We don't know. We have to, we are all speculating on this, what kind of error is that. Certainly it is not expected. And Dr. Kang said, for me, it is puzzling that you are averaging out data of two entirely different trials, very bona fide, very interesting trial. In fact, the half-dose trial is very, very interesting. We will learn a lot about this virus. So I think it could have been much more sort of robust to present both these trials. I hope by Monday they are publishing this data. I hope they published that data fully so that people across the world can. I mean, these are very good studies, but unnecessarily they got into these kind of controversies. But I am on your question. This is not expected in this kind of trials.
Right. Well, Madhu Gupta, let me come to you here, ma'am. The Serum Institute of India has said that there is no need to panic, right, amid this, and this is work in progress. So how do you see the findings of the clinical trial from AstraZeneca, and what's the way forward do you see over there? Like, will it be a delay, of course, or, I mean, usually whenever we encounter such an error, is it back to square one as we usually see in the trials or the clinical trials of any candidate vaccine?
Yeah, thank you. I think most of the things are being clarified by Dr. Gagandeep Kang. So they had admitted this issue, and they had informed the regulators, and they had taken the corrective action. And they had made these two groups. And Serum Institute was aware of this. And in India, they had the study which they are doing on, they are giving the full dose, full 2 doses to the participants. So even the WHO says that 50% vaccine efficacy would be good enough to deal with this corona pandemic. So even if it is between 60 to 70%, I would say it will be a good thing. So we will have something to deal with this pandemic. And with that, so that is why I think they are saying that there is no need to panic, and they are going ahead with their trial. There is no problem in continuing the trial. We can go ahead and complete this trial. So, as such, also the AstraZeneca vaccine, also they completed, there's a second group with the full doses. So there should not be, I don't think there should be any issues. And we have approvals from all the regulators in this respect. So even 70% vaccine efficacy, I would say, is a good efficacy to prevent the disease, and especially those who are at higher risk, the healthcare providers, the population more than 60 years of age with comorbidities. So I think it will be a good option to prevent the morbidity and mortality among them.
Right. Dr. Gagandeep Kang, ma'am, like here there was a massive optimism when we heard about the clinical trials of the AstraZeneca in Oxford, and just days before they came up with the findings that there are some errors in the trials, or the process of trials to say off. They were actually arriving towards the near positive, or I mean the results that the vaccine could be there inside soon. Now with these findings, how far things would get slowed down if we just talked in, especially the parlance of having vaccine arrived at a certain point of time, or has this finding delayed the arrival of vaccine or a candidate vaccine?
So as Madhu has pointed out, the WHO, the FDA had agreed that any vaccine that performed above 50% would be an acceptable vaccine to bring forward for licensure. This is a vaccine that is over 60%. I see no reason why the companies, both Serum Institute and AstraZeneca, cannot apply for the emergency use authorization and in the fullness of time, licensure of their vaccines based on the results that they've got. Vaccine, I think one of the things that we are being swayed by is the fact that we had reports saying 90%, 95%,
yes, absolutely, you're right. Yes, yes, yes.
But you know, a 60% vaccine, 70% vaccine, as Madhu said, is a good vaccine. It's going to prevent a significant proportion of disease. And let's remember that this is a vaccine that we actually can use, unlike the Pfizer vaccine, which is going to require us to build a whole new cold storage system. But the way the company presented it, this raises doubt. When the company comes forward and first says, we have 90% efficacy, and then you find out that the 90% efficacy is in a much smaller number. And there is another set of people in whom it is actually 60 to 64% efficacy. When the details are not provided to you, when the headline numbers differ from the information that comes afterwards, then for a public health community as well as the general public, you begin to wonder, you know, what is driving this method of communication? The people in Oxford who are doing the vaccine trial are very well known for the quality of their science and the quality of their clinical trials. They are not inexperienced in this. So the communication is really AstraZeneca. And I think, quite frankly, there were other ways they could have played this. Much more detail rather than headline numbers. A clear laying out of what happened, when, who they communicated with, what their results are, would have been a much better approach than the one that they took. And this can be damaging in terms of the public trusting what is put out. It can be a very serious issue, especially at a time when these are completely new vaccines and we are so eagerly waiting for data.
Right. Ma'am, that's a very important point you raised. Let me just take it forward with Dr. Ramakrishna Vishwakarma. Sir, as Dr. Gagandeep Kang pointed out, there is a massive expectation, optimism. Now, given the size and scale of India, with such a findings, will that set any sort of panic in forth, and what are the measures to actually put any apprehensions to the rest?
Absolutely not. I think we have to look at the big picture scientifically. It is pretty amazing that we have a vaccine for coronavirus so quickly. Any vaccine.
Yes, this is actually a fairly fast result. Yeah.
40 years we have been struggling and we have not got it. So I think I consider this is a really full force of science at work, whether Pfizer, AstraZeneca, or anybody else. So I think look at the big picture that now it seems possible, seriously possible, that we will have a vaccine for this virus. Maybe a month ago, it was all in realms of speculation. So I think it is a great step forward that we have 3 different constructs and showing